In July 1944, amidst the intense pressures of World War II, an extraordinary deception campaign was quietly underway. It wasn't fought with guns, tanks, or bombs, but with a subtle mastery of sound waves and electromagnetic signals. This was the story of Operation Tinfoil, a bold and ingenious military ruse designed to create an entire phantom army where none existed, using nothing more than aluminum foil and the invisible pulses of radio waves. As the Allied forces prepared for their decisive moves across Europe, intelligence officers understood one fundamental truth. Winning a war is not just about firepower, it is about outsmarting your enemy. Misinformation and misdirection had become weapons as lethal as any artillery shell. Operation Tinfoil exemplified this new battlefield, where silence, noise, and shadows played pivotal roles. The operation's core tactic was deceptively simple, yet incredibly effective. Engineers and specialists crafted thin sheets of aluminum foil, often called chaff, which were designed to scatter and reflect radio waves. When dropped or positioned strategically, these tiny metallic strips created artificial echoes on enemy radar and radio equipment. To the German operators listening intently for Allied troop movements, these echoes appeared indistinguishable from real radio traffic, emitted by large troop formations. But this was only half the story. Beyond merely scattering radar waves, Operation Tinfoil incorporated an elaborate system of radio transmissions that mimicked real military communications. Specialized teams generated synthetic radio chatter, fake orders, troop movements, and logistical conversations, which were broadcasted over frequencies closely resembling those used by genuine Allied units. The combination of chaff-generated radar, reflections, and counterfeit radio signals created a phantom military presence that stretched for miles. German commanders, relying heavily on intercepted radio signals and radar data to form their strategic decisions, found themselves increasingly misled. Reports began to surface of massive Allied forces gathering at locations where no soldiers were stationed. Entire divisions were detected on enemy screens, units that existed only as reflections and echoes. This strategic illusion had profound consequences on the battlefield. The German High Command, believing these fabricated signals to be genuine, diverted troops and resources to counter threats that didn't exist. Defensive lines were fortified in the wrong places, and reinforcements were sent on wild goose chases across the countryside. This forced dispersion of forces weakened German responses at critical junctures, paving the way for actual Allied offensives to proceed with less resistance. The technological ingenuity behind Operation Tinfoil was remarkable for its time. Utilizing the physics of radio wave reflection, combined with an acute understanding of enemy intelligence methods, the operation showcased how scientific principles could be weaponized for psychological warfare. The aluminum strips used as radar chaff were inexpensive but remarkably effective. Tiny sheets of foil fluttering in the air, invisible to the naked eye, yet capable of distorting enemy perceptions on a grand scale. Moreover, the radio operators involved in this deception exercised tremendous skill, mimicking the unique communication styles, the fist, or the individual mannerisms of real radio operators was no small feat. The fake transmissions had to be believable, reflecting the nuanced codes and rhythms used in authentic military radio traffic. Any mistake could raise suspicion, but these operators maintained the illusion flawlessly. Operation Tinfoil was more than a technical trick. It was a psychological weapon that preyed on the enemy's reliance on technology and intelligence gathering. The Germans, convinced of the presence of an overwhelming Allied force, suffered from confusion and hesitation. Time and again, these phantoms disrupted their strategic calculations, forcing delays and errors that ultimately benefited the Allied advance. Importantly, this operation was not an isolated incident but part of a broader tapestry of Allied deception efforts during the war. Yet Operation Tinfoil stood out for its blend of science and craft, harbinger of modern electronic warfare and cyber deception tactics. Its legacy extends into the present day, influencing how militaries use electronic countermeasures to shield and mislead adversaries. In the grand theatre of World War II, where countless lives were risked and lost, Operation Tinfoil remained largely invisible, a ghostly participant whose impact was felt more in minds and maps than on battlefields. But its success was undeniable. By creating an entire army out of aluminum foil and radio waves, it saved lives, secured critical victories, and redefined the art of deception in warfare. As history remembers the tanks, guns, and soldiers of W. Towing, Operation Tinfoil quietly endures as a testament to the power of human ingenuity, a reminder that sometimes the deadliest weapon is not what you see, but what you make your enemy believe is there. Following the ingenious use of aluminum foil to scatter radar waves and create ghostly images of non-existent armies, Operation Tinfoil extended its reach into the realm of radio communications. This next phase of deception was as sophisticated as it was subtle, designed to fool the enemy, not just visually, but audibly. The Allies knew that German intelligence relied heavily on intercepting and interpreting radio traffic to gain insight into troop movements, supply lines, and battle plans. To counter this, Operation Tinfoil employed a masterstroke, broadcasting synthetic radio signals that mimicked the sounds of an enormous military force, strategically placed miles away from any real Allied soldiers. The heart of this tactic was the creation of radio chatter, a continuous stream of carefully crafted messages that resembled authentic military communications. But these were not haphazard transmissions. Every call sign, every code, every pause was meticulously planned to match the unique style and cadence of real Allied radio operators. This meant the Germans, trained to distinguish genuine transmissions from noise, were completely deceived. The fake signals echoed across the ether, suggesting a bustling military hub, preparing for action, where there was only silence. To accomplish this, specially trained teams of radio technicians and linguists worked around the clock. Their job was not just to send messages, but to play radio like musicians, playing an instrument, replicating the individual, fist or distinctive rhythm of real operators. This was crucial because German signals intelligence units, known as SIGINT, had become adept at identifying operators by their unique sending styles. By mimicking these nuances perfectly, the Allies ensured the phantom communications passed undetected as fabrications. These synthetic transmissions carried fake orders about troop deployments, supply movements, and even morale updates. German commanders intercepted these transmissions, digesting the information as fact. The misleading broadcasts created an illusion of size and activity that was disproportionate to reality. While the real Allied forces massed quietly elsewhere, the Germans were busy focusing on these fictitious hubs, preparing defenses and shifting units to counter a threat that simply did not exist. The strategic impact of this tactic cannot be overstated. In wartime, knowledge of enemy movements is everything. By flooding German intelligence channels with false radio traffic, Operation Tinfoil sowed confusion and mistrust among their ranks. Commanders hesitated to redeploy troops, unsure which transmissions were real and which were cleverly fabricated. This hesitation cost the German army precious time and allowed the Allies to consolidate their strength in preparation for critical offensives. Moreover, the operation capitalized on the limits of wartime technology. Radio waves can travel hundreds, even thousands of miles, bouncing off atmospheric layers and terrain. This allowed Allied technicians to position their transmitters far from the areas of real activity, transmitting signals that seemed to come from unexpected directions. Such geographic deception further disoriented the enemy, making it appear that Allied forces were widespread and preparing simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts. One of the most remarkable aspects of this phase of operation Tinfoil was its integration with physical deceptions like inflatable tanks and dummy installations. The radio signals were not standalone tricks. They complemented the visual illusions on the ground. For example, when German reconnaissance planes spotted fake tank formations, the intercepted radio chatter confirmed what they saw, strengthening the illusion and increasing the enemy's confidence in the misinformation. Behind this radio deception campaign was a blend of science, psychology, and theatricality. Operators needed to maintain authenticity, but also enough ambiguity to prevent German analysts from probing too deeply. The broadcasts often included routine chatter, mundane exchanges about supply issues or weather, reports, just like real soldiers would communicate. This attention to detail made the entire facade believable and enduring. Operation Tinfoil's radio deception also demanded extraordinary discipline and coordination. Transmitters had to be switched on and off at precise times, matching the movements of actual Allied units. Messages were coded to sound genuine but contained no real secrets. This required a careful balancing act. Be authentic enough to fool the enemy, but never so revealing as to endanger real operations. The impact of these fake radio transmissions was profound. German intelligence misallocated resources, reinforcing defenses where none were needed. This misdirection diluted their capacity to respond to real threats, directly contributing to the success of Allied campaigns, including the critical Normandy landings and subsequent liberation efforts across Europe. In hindsight, Operation Tinfoil's radio deception was a visionary glimpse into the future of electronic warfare. It showed how information itself could be weaponized, how sound, waves and signals could become battlegrounds. The principles learned here echo in modern-day tactics involving cyber warfare, jamming and misinformation campaigns. In the grand narrative of World War II, Operation Tinfoil's synthetic radio chatter remained a silent hero. It was an invisible symphony of lies, meticulously orchestrated to lead the enemy astray without firing a single bullet. Its success was a testament to the ingenuity of the Allied forces, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon is the one your enemy never sees coming. In the shadowed corridors of World War II intelligence, few stories capture the sheer audacity and brilliance of deception quite like Operation Mincemeat. It was 1943. The war had reached a critical juncture. The Allies were preparing to invade Sicily, a strategic gateway to continental Europe, but they needed to keep the Germans guessing. The stakes were high. A successful invasion could hasten the collapse of Axis powers, but any leak or premature discovery would be catastrophic. Faced with this dilemma, British intelligence devised a plan that seemed almost too audacious to be true. The idea was simple in concept but complex in execution. Deliver false plans to the enemy using a dead body as the unwitting messenger. This was no ordinary corpse. It would be meticulously prepared and dressed as a Royal Marine officer, carrying top-secret documents. The goal was to mislead the Germans into believing the Allies intended to invade Greece and Sardinia, not Sicily, diverting their defences away from the true target. The plan began with the acquisition of a suitable body. A homeless man who had died from pneumonia was chosen for this grim role. Codenamed Major William Martin, this fabricated officer was given a detailed backstory, complete with personal letters, receipts, photographs, and even love notes from a fictional fiancé. Every detail was designed to create a convincing identity that would withstand scrutiny. Next came the documents, a set of carefully crafted papers outlining false invasion plans. These included letters between high-ranking officers discussing troop movements to Greece and Sardinia, as well as operational orders that suggested Sicily was merely a diversion. Every word was painstakingly chosen to be plausible but misleading. Once the corpse was prepared, it was placed aboard a submarine and released off the coast of Spain, near Huelva, in April 1943. The choice of location was strategic. Spain was officially neutral but known for its Axis sympathies and active German espionage networks. It was the perfect place for the body and its misleading documents to be discovered by the enemy. What followed was a masterclass in deception and patience. German intelligence agents, upon recovering the body and its documents, fell for the ruse entirely. They believed Major Martin was a real officer who had perished during a covert mission. The false invasion plans were passed up the chain of command and, crucially, accepted as genuine. This diversion worked spectacularly. German forces shifted significant troops and resources to Greece and Sardinia, leaving Sicily vulnerable. When the Allies launched their invasion in July 1943, they encountered less resistance than expected. Operation Mincemeat had successfully created a phantom threat that pulled German attention away from the true battlefield. The success of this operation was not merely in the clever use of a corpse, but in the painstaking attention to detail and understanding of enemy psychology. British intelligence officers knew the Germans were keen to intercept any Allied plans, so they made the false documents not only plausible but compelling. The personal effects on the body humanized Major Martin, making the story believable. Operation Mincemeat became a turning point in the use of unconventional warfare tactics, blending espionage, theatre, and cold calculation. It demonstrated that deception in war was as much about storytelling as it was about technology or brute force. Decades later, the story of Operation Mincemeat remains one of the most remarkable examples of wartime cunning. It's a reminder that sometimes the dead can wield more influence than the living, and that in war, truth is often the first casualty. During the darkest days of the Second World War, as the skies over Britain were painted with the fiery trails of German bombs, a remarkable secret weapon was quietly at work, a weapon made not of steel or explosives, but of concrete, canvas, and fire. This was the story of Britain's decoy sites, codenamed Q sites or starfish. Sites, elaborate, man-made illusions designed to fool the Luftwaffe and save countless lives. By 1940, the German Luftwaffe's Blitz was devastating British cities and industrial centres. Factories, ports, and airfields were prime targets, and the destruction threatened not just lives, but the very infrastructure that kept Britain's war effort alive. Faced with relentless bombing raids, British military planners turned to an innovative form of defense, deception on a massive scale. The idea was simple yet breathtaking in scale. Build fake towns, airfields, and industrial complexes in rural areas away from real targets. These decoy sites were constructed to look from the air like legitimate military or industrial facilities, complete with fake runways, buildings, and even simulated fire. Their purpose was to attract enemy bombers away from actual cities and critical installations, tricking pilots into wasting their payloads on nothing more than shadows and smoke. One of the most striking aspects of these decoy sites was their meticulous attention to detail. During daylight, fake runways were created using concrete or painted canvas strips, designed to reflect light just like real tarmac. Dummy aircraft made from wood and canvas sat parked on the fields, their painted surfaces glinting in the sun. At night, the deception became even more dramatic. As darkness fell, the decoy sites came alive with controlled fires, flares, and lighting rigs designed to mimic the glow of bombed-out cities or burning factories. These fires were carefully managed to produce smoke and light patterns similar to those caused by real incendiary bombs. The effect was so convincing that German bomber crews often targeted these decoys, dropping their bombs harmlessly on empty fields. The creation and operation of these Q sites required a unique blend of artistry, engineering, and courage. Teams of firemen worked tirelessly to ignite and control the fires, ensuring they looked authentic without risking real damage. Observers continuously monitored enemy reconnaissance to refine and improve the decoy's effectiveness. One of the largest and most famous starfish sites was located near London, designed to protect the city's industrial heartland. When German bombers flew over, they saw what appeared to be an unscathed urban landscape or a lightly damaged area, directing their attacks away from the real targets below. The impact of the decoy sites was significant. Historians estimate that these illusions diverted millions of pounds worth of damage from vital British infrastructure. Thousands of civilian lives were spared because bombs fell on fake targets rather than densely populated areas. Moreover, the decoy program represented an early form of what we now call strategic deception, using misinformation and misdirection to shape enemy behavior without firing a shot. It was a testament to British resilience and ingenuity, turning the bleakness of war into a stage for creativity and cunning. In addition to their practical effects, the decoy sites carried a psychological weight. For the British public and military, they symbolized hope, that even in the face of overwhelming odds, human cleverness could forge weapons out of illusion. For the Germans, the persistent failure of their bombing campaigns to cripple British defences added to frustration and confusion. Operation Starfish and its decoy sites are often overshadowed by the larger battles of World War II, yet their legacy endures. They laid the groundwork for modern camouflage techniques and electronic deception, influencing how future conflicts would be fought in the shadows. In the end, the story of Britain's decoy sites is a powerful reminder. Sometimes survival depends not on confronting the enemy directly, but on shaping their perceptions. Through fires, shadows, and smoke, Britain fought back and won with nothing more than an artful lie. In the vast, turbulent expanse of the Pacific theatre during World War II, deception took on many forms, often shaped by the environment and resources at hand. One of the most fascinating and lesser-known stratagems was Japan's use of bamboo, bombers, and dummy airfields, masterclass in illusion that aimed to mislead American forces and protect key military assets from devastating attacks. As the war dragged on and American air raids intensified, the Japanese military faced a daunting challenge. Their airfields and aircraft were prime targets, and damage to these would cripple their ability to wage war. Across the Pacific Islands, conventional defenses were limited by material shortages and the vast distances involved. So Japanese strategists turned to deception, using what they had in abundance: bamboo, wood, and other lightweight materials. The result was a series of meticulously crafted dummy aircraft and airfields, often constructed from bamboo frames, paper, and fabric. These bamboo bombers were designed to be convincing from the air, their proportions and silhouettes carefully matched to real Japanese planes. When seen from a distance or through reconnaissance photography, they looked like fully operational aircraft, parked and ready for battle. These decoys were typically deployed on fake airfields, open patches of land outfitted with painted runways and mock hangars, all intended to deceive enemy pilots and reconnaissance planes. The Japanese also used canvas and other materials to replicate vehicles, fuel drums, and support equipment, completing the illusion of a bustling, fortified airbase. The strategic objective was clear: lure American bombers away from real targets and force them to waste precious ordnance on worthless decoys. By flooding the skies with false targets, Japan hoped to dilute the effectiveness of the relentless American bombing campaigns and preserve their limited air power. Japanese deception experts were also adept at using natural camouflage, blending these decoys into the dense tropical foliage. From the air, the dummy airfields often appeared indistinguishable from genuine military installations, especially when obscured by smoke, clouds, or the early morning mist common in the Pacific Islands. These dummy airfields served more than just a tactical purpose. They were part of a broader psychological warfare campaign, designed to project strength and readiness, even in the face of growing American advances. By creating the illusion of continued operational capability, the Japanese sought to maintain morale among their forces and confuse enemy intelligence. The effectiveness of these bamboo bombers and fake airfields varied, but was significant enough to influence American bombing strategies. Pilots sometimes reported attacking what appeared to be active bases, only to find later that their strikes had fallen on empty fields or inert decoys. These misdirected efforts bought crucial time for the Japanese to repair real airfields or relocate their aircraft. However, as American reconnaissance technology improved and experience grew, the limitations of these decoys became apparent. High-altitude photography, signals intelligence, and ground reports gradually chipped away at the effectiveness of Japan's ruses. Nonetheless, the bamboo bombers stand as a testament to ingenuity under pressure and the creative lengths to which military planners would go to protect their assets. Beyond the immediate tactical effects, Japan's use of dummy airfields and bamboo bombers highlights a universal truth of warfare. Deception is often born out of necessity, especially when facing material or technological disadvantages. It reflects a deep understanding of the enemy's reliance on aerial reconnaissance and the value of information in modern combat. In retrospect, these decoy efforts contributed to the evolving art of camouflage and military deception worldwide. They foreshadowed modern techniques that combine physical decoys with electronic and digital misdirection, proving that even in the most technology-driven wars, simple illusions can still shape the battlefield. Today, the story of Japan's bamboo bombers is a striking chapter in the history of wartime ingenuity, a vivid reminder that in war, appearance can be as powerful as reality, and that sometimes the most dangerous weapons are the ones that exist only in shadow and light.